Freshman orientation at Wasabiyama High is basically a shark tank of club recruitment. Everyone is shouting, pushing flyers, and promising the best years of your life. But Shun Satou looks like he's already checked out before the first bell even rings. He can't even walk down the hall without getting scouted by the athletics department. To the soccer club, he's not a person. He's just 6 feet of untapped potential. They're practically drooling over him. Your height's an immediate asset. Then the name lands. Shun Satou, the Norikawa middle school legend. He's the one who got MVP in the prefectural tournament 2 years in a row. The air in the hallway changes. Suddenly he's the savior of their weak team. Shun shuts them down with a single quiet sentence that carries the weight of a dead dream. My leg is injured. I can't play soccer anymore. He leaves them in a stunned silence, but the peace only lasts 3 seconds before the basketball club swarms him. Same pitch, different ball. He's tired of explaining the same tragedy to every sports nut with a whistle. His world has shrunk to a series of flyers and expectations he can no longer meet. He fixes his eyes on the board, feeling the weight of the day. I want to go home. And that's when a face pops into his field of vision with the subtlety of a jump scare. Short lavender hair, a huge bow, and eyes that look like they've never known a boring second in their life. Did you just say you want to go home? Shun is towering over her, but she's the one holding all the power. She measures his height with a hand, not for sports, but for something else entirely. You're very well suited for the going home club. She slaps a flyer into his hand. It's not just a club, it's a lifestyle. Would you like to join the Hyper Go Home Club too? Shun studies the scribbled name and the strange little cat drawing like he's looking at a coded message from another planet. The faculty has arrived to end the fun. Sensei looks like he's about to pop a vein, tearing the flyer away before Naoki can corrupt any more youth. Stop hanging it up on your own already. Naoki doesn't blink. She just smiles and promises to wait for Shun at the gate. She makes her escape at a speed that barely qualifies as walking. Sensei is shouting about the hallway rules, but it's like yelling at a gentle breeze. Shun is left standing there, genuinely questioning if he's having a fever dream. See ya. Sensei drops the official warning. Naoki Satou from Class 2B, better known as Chokki-chan. She's a professional at leaving before the bell and ignoring every rule in the book, so it's best for you to keep your distance from her. Classes end, the sun dips, and Shun heads for the gate, assuming he's safe. But there she is, leaning against the wall like she's been there for hours. She lights up the second she sees him. You really came. He didn't mean to come, he just literally has to walk past this gate to get home. But Naoki's enthusiasm is a tractor beam. All right, let's head home today as well, he sighs, looking at the weirdo who just hijacked his afternoon. She stops dead in her tracks for a piece of wood. In any other hands, it's a dead branch. In hers, it's a legendary weapon. She swings it with absolute conviction. That's a sword. No, it's a great sword. She leads him to a pile of debris that Sensei would call a fire hazard, but she calls it her arsenal. Sticks, a sign from a typhoon, and a tough-looking stone. Shun is surveying a literal trash heap, and she's looking at a treasury. There's an official sign calling her out by name for the branch stashing, but she's not reading it today. Footsteps approach, the student council is on the prowl. Quick, come and hide here. So now the soccer MVP is squatting in the weeds with a girl who fights trees. He asks himself why he's even doing this, but then Naoki pulls a faded handbook from the dirt. Looks like I've found something good. It's a time capsule. A love letter from 4 years ago and 2 movie ticket stubs. Naoki's eyes go wide, spinning a story of secret meetings and teenage drama in this very spot. This is a relic of someone's youth. Shun looks at the trash. Naoki looks at the history. She turns to him with a smile that's too bright for the bushes. Can't you feel the romance in things like this? Finding a sword, a memento, or a secret path, it's all part of the journey. In her head, the walk home isn't just asphalt and power lines. It's floating islands, legendary swords, and adventures that exist in the space between school and sleep. The mundane world just got a lot more crowded. Shun isn't buying it yet. To him, romance is for novels, not for dusty handbooks in the dirt. But then she pivots to something he understands: cold hard cash. We could get some budget if it's recognized as a club. He suggests just calling it a romance club, but Naoki is adamant. Hyper makes it sound powerful. Hyper sounds cooler, right? Shun realizes her eyes don't see the world the same way his do. For her, everything is still a game. She finally explains the height thing. It's about the field of vision. Being tall means you see things she misses down here, but when he tries to pin her down on the logic, she's already on to the next thought. You're suited to this club? They're not heading toward the station anymore. She ducks into a narrow alleyway that looks like it hasn't been used since the school was built. Isn't this kind of suspicious? Shun feels like he's being lured into a secret society or a trap. His imagination starts running wild with images of weird cult ceremonies and flower crowns. He's 2 seconds away from bolting when Naoki points up the hill. Am I being led to some sketchy gathering? They break through the tree line, and the cynicism dies in his throat. The whole town is washed in a burning gold. The rooftops and power lines glowing in the late afternoon heat. For the first time since he quit soccer, the world looks big again. It's beautiful. Then, a wild tuxedo cat appears. Naoki introduces him with the gravity of a diplomat. This is the local authority. Shun's reaction is a bit more grounded. Whoa, that's a big-ass cat. He sits there with the boss in his lap, the rhythmic rustle of the leaves filling the space. For years, this was soccer practice time. He doesn't know what to do with hands that aren't holding a ball. I'm still not used to doing nothing at this hour. Classes are boring. Waking up sucks. Homework is a hassle. Shun lays out his life like a list of chores. He's not depressed. He's just plain. And the highlight of my day is going home. Naoki asks the big question, is there anything left to look forward to? Shun watches the horizon, the silence stretching long and thin. He doesn't say soccer, but the word is there in the air. I used to, but not anymore. She doesn't offer a deep speech. She just tries to make a bug fight the cat. But then, as she stands to leave, she drops a piece of wisdom. You should at least show up every day, as long as you don't absolutely hate it. She wants him there for one reason, so he can walk home with her. She finally asks his name. When he says Shun Satou, she stops. 2 Satous in one tiny club. Can I call you Shun-kun then? She leaves him with a promise that sounds more like a command. Let's go home together again tomorrow, Shun-kun. He tries to tell her he hasn't officially joined the club, but his protest is already lost in the evening wind. Don't outright me. A casual wave, a bright smile, and Shun realizes his dream of a peaceful, low-profile existence has officially flatlined. Chokki-chan is already in full president mode, treating the sidewalk like her personal boardroom. She waves him over with a cheery, "Nice work," ignoring his attempt to fade into the background. He tries to point out he's not a regular, but she shuts that down with a heavy dose of club leader logic. You're an important new club member. Her enthusiasm is a physical force, a blur of motion that drags Shun off the straight path home. He questions the detour, but she's already pivoting with a mysterious glint in her eyes. It's not just a walk, it's a mission. She stops, arms wide, declaring that today is special. After all, it's Wednesday. The neon lights of the convenience store act like a beacon for the perpetually hungry. To Shun, it's just a shop, but to Chokki-chan, this is the enchanting after-school event that middle school teachers probably warned them about. She stands before the sliding doors as if entering a cathedral, ready to partake in the most romantic act known to youth, buying and eating food right then and there. Wednesday is the midweek wall, and only a snack can scale it. But even the going home club has rules, and this one is brutal, a strict 200 yen budget. It's meant to foster money management, but as Shun stares at the shelves, he realizes the romance of the store is basically just a battle against inflation. He suggests a supermarket for a better deal, but Chokki-chan isn't looking for a bargain, she's looking for a vibe. She's built a whole mythos around teenagers standing in front of convenience stores, a scene pulled straight from a coming-of-age drama. To her, these are irreplaceable moments. She throws down the gauntlet, turning a simple snack run into a contest of who can find the best value for their coins. Shun isn't even hungry yet, but the pressure of the competition is starting to prickle. The crisis hits. Her demon-sized cream bun, the dream snack, is a betrayal in paper packaging. 196 yen plus tax brings it to 211. She's staring into the abyss of an empty wallet, clutching her head as the cold reality of economic shifts ruins her afternoon. As she puts it, she's just tying her own noose here, while Chokki-chan enters a spiral of snack-induced despair. Shun decides to bypass the existential dread. He doesn't need a bun with a demon on it. He needs something fast and within budget. He leaves her to her humming and hawing, stepping toward the warm, oily glow of the hot snack counter. The glint in his eye says, he's found the answer. Enter the American dog. It's a golden, battered icon of deep-fried liberty for only 130 yen. Shun holds it aloft like a torch, feeling the weight of his victory. In the land of freedom, he's won the battle of the budget while Chokki-chan is still stuck in the bread aisle, lost in a sea of indecision. Finally, the transaction is complete. A quick beep of the microwave and Chokki-chan emerges, steam practically rising from her hands. She apologizes for the wait, but her focus is entirely on the plastic container in her grip. It's hot, dangerously hot, and she's radiating a smug energy that suggests she found a loophole in the snack system. She isn't eating a snack, she's eating a whole demi-glaze hamburger steak, with chopsticks. Shun stares as she huffs and puffs over the steaming meat, completely abandoning the conveni vibe for a pure protein fix. He can't help but ask, "Are you a carnivore?" But the look on her face says the meat was worth the loss of school commute aesthetics. The silence between them stretches, filled only by the rhythmic sound of her chewing. Then she looks up, corn dog hovering in his hand and her steak in the other. She asks if she can have a bite, worrying about hygiene for exactly 1 second before her hunger wins. He holds it out, a quiet surrender to the strange intimacy of the moment. She doesn't hesitate. She leans in, a small, focused movement that catches him off guard. The world narrows down to the tip of those chopsticks and the steam rising between them. He takes the bite, the rich sauce hitting his tongue as he realizes that following her lead might be chaotic, but it certainly isn't tasteless. The sun begins to dip, casting long shadows against the storefront as they finish. Chokki-chan is satisfied, a few escaping her as she packs up the remains of her feast. But just as Shun thinks the adventure is over, she reaches into her bag with a look of sudden, serious intent. She pulls out a worn, sticker-covered notebook, the Hyper Go Home Club activity journal. She drops the bomb. He's the one who has to keep the records. She claims it's to show the teacher, a preemptive strike against Sensei's inevitable crackdown. She tells him to feel free to stick stickers on it, like Kaneda's bike, leaving Shun wondering if he's a club member or just a designated historian. She softens for a second, a genuine warmth behind her eyes, as she tells him he doesn't have to write every day. Just the days he had fun. Like today, Shun looks at the notebook in his hands, then at her beaming face. He tries to protest, but it's too late. The weight of the memories is already in his hands. He's officially part of the record. The school gate feels weirdly empty without a lavender-haired whirlwind lunging at him. Shun stands there, bracing for an ambush that doesn't come, and the silence is surprisingly heavy. No Hyper Go Home Club means no scheduled chaos, and for a guy who wanted a quiet life, he looks remarkably lost. A classmate jogs up with a message from the missing president. She scans her memory, peering at Shun like he's a puzzle piece that doesn't quite fit. She delivers the news with a cheerful shrug. "She asked me to tell you I got caught and had to help setting up the ball games fest, so go home without me." It turns out Chokki-chan is more than just a chaos magnet. She's a gatekeeper. She's been fending off other clubs, telling them Shun is off limits for recruitment. He watches the messenger skip away, realizing his peace and quiet are being defended by the loudest person he knows. 24 hours later, the whirlwind is back with a sheepish grin. Sensei caught her mid-escape, assuming she was trying to dodge responsibilities again. She leans in with a theatrical whisper, recounting the teacher's lecture, "You can't go home yet." Shun decides it's time for a radical 21st-century solution. He pulls out his phone, ready to bridge the communication gap with a simple QR code. No more middlemen, no more missed meetings, just two people exchanging contact info like normal humans. The rejection is absolute. Naoki stares at the screen like it's a soul-sucking monster, her eyes wide with a very specific kind of stubbornness. To her, a text message is a shortcut that kills the adventure. She leans forward, delivering a flat, unwavering no. Since smartphones are banned from the club's romance budget, they dive into the archaeological dig of the 90s. They stare at diagrams of pagers, trying to decipher how people once survived on tiny screens and numeric codes. Shun can only watch as she treats a defunct plastic box like a holy relic. The more complicated it gets, the more she loves it. She envisions a world of secret numeric languages sent from cold street corners. She looks at the payphone booth like it's a portal to a more meaningful era, sighing. It seems so romantic. When pagers aren't ancient enough, she shifts gears into biological messaging. She envisions a sky filled with loyal birds carrying their meeting spots across the city. Shun's expression goes completely blank as she suggests, "Let's go catch us some pigeons." They find their potential air force at the park, huddled around an elderly man who's seen too many teenagers with strange ideas. He watches them approach with a weary kind of patience, the pigeons at his feet clearly uninterested in becoming a delivery service. The old man doesn't sugarcoat the logistics. He points at the feathered freeloaders, explaining that these aren't elite messengers, they're just hungry. He delivers the reality check with zero hesitation. These are dumbass pigeons. He takes them back to the era of landlines and fixed plans. Back when you had to decide a time and a place and actually show up, because there was no way to cancel once you left the house. The uncertainty was the price of the promise. The old man stands to leave, dropping one last truth that hits Shun harder than the pager research. It's not about the technology, it's about the intent. He looks back at them, reminding them, you only make plans with people you really want to see. Naoki stands amidst a flurry of wings, her hair caught in the breeze as she looks at him with a clarity that cuts through her usual eccentricity. She doesn't want the ease of a text. She wants the gravity of a shared commitment that could survive 30 years of silence. The pigeons are dismissed, and Egypt is off the table for now. They settle on a pact that feels as solid as any ancient vow. If one doesn't show within 20 minutes, the other goes home. It's a low-tech promise that makes every meeting feel like a victory. The air at Wasabiyama High is thick with the smell of sweat and desperation. It's the ball games festival. While the rest of the school is fighting for glory, Shun is stuck on the sidelines with a busted knee and a scorekeeper's clipboard. Haruto leans in, noticing the star player is officially out of commission. Shun just points to the black brace on his leg and keeps it brief. My leg is hurt. Haruto isn't here to talk about knee cartilage. He's here for the real news. He leans in close, phone in hand, asking about the super cute girl who's always walking home with Shun. Before Shun can even process the shift from sports to romance, Haruto drops the hammer. Is she your girlfriend? Shun's brain goes into emergency shutdown mode. He stammers out a correction. She's just a senpai, not a girlfriend. But Haruto isn't buying the just friend's defense. The timing couldn't be worse as the senpai in question chooses that exact moment to pop into view. Naoki peeks around the corner, her presence turning the awkwardness up to an 11. Naoki strolls in, looking surprisingly athletic in her PE gear. She's been drafted for the softball game, which is a terrifying prospect for everyone involved considering her usual treasure-collecting hobbies. Haruto stares, his brain short-circuiting at the idea of the Hyper-Go-Home Club president actually touching a ball. Softball, yep. Realizing Naoki has zero experience, Haruto's baseball club instincts kick in. He drags her over to a chalkboard, scribbling out diamonds and defensive positions like he's preparing for the World Series. He starts lecturing her on base running and tactical turns, while Naoki just blinks at the scribbles, looking more lost than a tourist without a map. Haruto is drowning her in strikes, balls, and bench rotations until Naoki looks ready to cry from the data dump. Shun decides to intervene, stripping the game down to its core. He points to the diagram with a single, simple truth. And you make it back to home plate. The word home hits Naoki like a bolt of lightning. Suddenly, this isn't a confusing sport anymore, it's a mission. Haruto tries to offer more details, but Naoki is already walking away, her eyes focused with a terrifying new intensity. She's not going out there to play softball, she's going out there to do what she does best, find a way home. The whistle blows and the chaos starts. Naoki steps up to the plate, gripping the bat like it's a piece of alien technology. Her internal monologue is a mess of physics and confusion. It's so heavy and thin, why would humans even do this? The pitcher lobs it, and somehow, Naoki manages to advance. She wanders toward first base with the speed of a tired snail, leaving the outfielders completely baffled. Nobody knows if she's playing the game or just taking a very specific walk. The crowd can only watch in silence as the rules of softball are slowly dismantled by her lack of urgency. Then, a miracle. A solid bam echoes across the field as Maeda from the literature club actually connects with the ball. It's a high fly, and the outfielders, two girls from the music and kendo clubs, scream in terror as the ball falls toward them. It's a total amateur hour out there, and the bases are suddenly live. Naoki is rounding third base now, her PE uniform fluttering as she finally picks up some speed. The defenders are fumbling the ball, shouting at each other in a panic. No, where should I throw it? The path to the finish line is wide open. The crowd is roaring for her to run, but in Naoki's head, there's only one voice. She sees the white plate in the dirt and hears Shun's words echoing. It's not about scoring a point, it's not about the festival, it's about the one thing she is an absolute expert at. Naoki shifts into a gear nobody knew she had. She's not just running. She's a blur of pure, unadulterated intent. The crowd gasps as she suddenly triples her pace, her heart screaming a single, powerful command: I want to go home. They scored. The cheering is loud enough to rattle the scoreboard, but the victory is short-lived. By the time they hit the second round, the go-home club's luck runs dry. As the sun begins to set, the excitement fades into a quiet walk. Naoki looks down, a bit subdued, as Shun asks how it all ended. We lost at the second round. They stop by a vending machine, the glow of the display reflecting in Naoki's eyes. She presses a button, the can clattering down into the tray with a heavy thud. She turns to Shun, extending the cold cola with a small, shy smile. Here, it's a small gift. Shun tries to deflect the credit, reminding her that Haruto spent an hour drawing diagrams on a chalkboard for her. Naoki just takes a long, refreshing gulp of her own drink and blinks. Haruto? She's completely wiped the poor guy from her memory banks. Shun can only stare in disbelief at the level of unintentional savagery. Naoki looks at the can in her hand, the condensation dripping. She admits that Haruto's rules were just noise, but Shun's explanation resonated with her entire soul. All I could think about during the game was what you said. It was a simple, rough explanation, but for the go-home club, it was the only rule that mattered. Gray clouds hang heavy over Wasabiyama High, and for Shun, the weather matches the static in his head. He's just finished with his indoor shoes when a voice cuts through the locker room humidity. Shun-kun, it's Naoki, appearing like a ghost of school days past to point out that he's actually staying later than her for once. Shun didn't check the forecast, but Naoki doesn't believe in apps anyway. She claims there's a certain romance in predicting the rain by reading the wind and watching the clouds like a high-seas navigator. Even when her logic hits the wall, she wears her absurdity like a captain's hat. Naoki mumbles through a self-correction. Turns out her weather-sensing gut might have misfired today. She offers him a spot under her umbrella, pulling him into her orbit before he can even process the offer. Sorry for my intrusion, he says, feeling the air get a whole lot thinner as he steps under the tiny canopy. The math of a shared umbrella doesn't quite work when one of you is a foot taller. Shun's shoulder is already acting as a rain catcher, but every time he shifts away, Naoki pulls him back. He blushes, realizing the logistics are a disaster. I'm too big, he admits. The words feeling heavy in the quiet rhythm of the downpour. Naoki goes into full strategist mode, weighing the merits of side-by-side walking versus a full-body plastic shield. She considers the rainy day mom style as the ultimate evolution of wet weather survival. It's a patented solution involving enough polka dots to confuse a predator and a brim that looks more like a roof than a hat. She decides they'll walk single file to maximize the dry zone. Sha, she whispers, stepping in sync with him like a shadow. It's a delicate dance of coordination, but when Shun tries to adjust his pace, her shoe catches on a slick patch of pavement. The ground rushes up to meet them. Wah! They collapse into a heap, the umbrella spinning away like a discarded toy. For a second, the only sound is the rain drumming on the asphalt. Naoki lets out a small, embarrassed "ay," but the joke doesn't land. Shun's leg is twisted beneath him, and the playful atmosphere vanishes into the cold, wet air. The laughter dies in Naoki's throat the moment she sees it, the brace on his leg. She lunges forward, her hands hovering over him in a panic. Is your leg okay? The grim reality of his past injuries suddenly feels like a physical barrier between them, and the guilt in her eyes is sharper than any fall. Shun tries to shake it off, insisting he's fine, but the damage to her spirit is already done. She stands there, shoulders slumped, looking smaller than she ever has under the gray sky. I'm sorry. The words are barely a whisper, a stark contrast to the girl who usually treats the world like her own personal playground. The journey home is a quiet slog. Shun spots a giant snail on a garden wall and tries to bridge the gap with a bit of her own whimsy, but the magic is gone. Naoki just nods, her gaze fixed on the pavement. Even the most impressive treasure can't distract her from the crushing regret of her own mistake. Back home, the fan whirs as it dries his uniform. But Shun can't stop thinking about the look on her face. It was the first time he'd seen her truly down, her eccentric armor shattered by a single accident. He realizes he never told her about his injury. The silence between them today felt heavier than the rain. He stares out at the wet streets, a knot of anxiety tightening in his chest. What if this changes things? What if she decides that walking home together isn't worth the risk? He tells himself he's being dramatic, but the thought of going back to his quiet life alone suddenly feels like a genuine loss. Morning brings more rain and a heavy atmosphere. Naoki finds him at the lockers, holding a small folding umbrella like an olive branch. "I've brought a folding umbrella today," she says, still trailing the ghost of yesterday's guilt. She's ready to stay in her own lane to keep him safe. But Shun has his own plan. He pulls a massive umbrella from his bag, a determined blush creeping up his neck. "I brought a bigger umbrella than yesterday's." So, with a satisfying snap, he opens the canopy, a wide shield designed for two. Look. The tension breaks as easily as the clouds. Under the massive umbrella, there's plenty of room to walk side by side without any single-file nonsense. Naoki lets out a genuine, mischievous laugh. Hey, I knew that would happen. The road home might be crowded and wet, but at least they're walking it together. After the storm of yesterday's guilt and the shelter of a giant umbrella, the library feels like a sanctuary of hushed whispers and dust motes. The exam season is looming, a shadow over the go-home club, turning their afternoon adventures into quiet sessions between the stacks. Naoki leans in, her eyes wide with a rare flash of academic panic. We don't have much time until the exam. Shun just stares at the fence, the silence stretching between them, as he realizes even a girl who hunts for treasure in the woods can't escape the school board's curriculum. She catches his distant look and snaps, "Come on, don't look away." The threat is real. Failing grades lead to supplementary lessons, the ultimate prison for a club dedicated to the art of leaving. They'd be forced to stay until sunset, stripped of their freedom in the name of remedial math. Naoki's solution is as simple as it is terrifying. They have to study together. The Wasabiyama City Library looms ahead, a dome of knowledge catching the fading light. Naoki isn't here for the books as much as the atmosphere, her face lighting up as she explains the timing. It's because the library vibe pairs well with the evening twilight. They slide into the quiet, a rhythmic scrape of chairs against the linoleum. To Shun, it's just a room full of books and the smell of old paper, but to Naoki, every shadowed corner is a stage for her personal brand of romance. She leaves him with a quick "be right back" and vanishes into the shelves. She returns with a stack of books that have absolutely nothing to do with their exams. Shun expected mystery, maybe a thriller, but Naoki's tastes are significantly more apocalyptic. She's been waiting to dive into the heavy stuff since she arrived. She isn't looking for a whodunit. She's looking for the end of the world. With a chillingly innocent smile, she drops the hammer. "I realize the more people die in a story, the more excited I get." Shun is left grappling with the fact that his eccentric senior finds descriptions of humanity's extinction to be the peak of literary comfort. She brushes it off as simple preference, a way to rest her mind before the real battle of studying begins. He tries to focus, the scratching of his pen the only protest against the weirdness of the moment. He's here to pass math, not contemplate the heat death of the universe. 30 minutes. That's all it took for the apocalypse to lose out to a nap. Shun watches her head slump onto her arms, the carefree girl fully succumbed to the silence of the library. She fell asleep? With Naoki in dreamland, Shun realizes he's fallen behind on his duties. He pulls out the Hyper Go Home Club activity journal, the notebook she entrusted to him to record their legends. If he's going to be the chronicler, he should at least see what the founder has been writing. He flips the page and the world narrows down to her handwriting. It's not just a log, it's a confession of how much his presence has changed her world. From the first day he joined to the softball game and the giant umbrella, she's been documenting his every small act of kindness. His chest tightens as he hits the final line. "I thought it wouldn't be so bad if this year's rainy season is long." It's more of a diary than a journal, a raw look at how she sees him, not as a burden, but as a highlight. He looks at her sleeping form, his face burning. He starts to draft the day's entry. keeping it simple to hide his own racing heart. And then she fell asleep without actually studying. The ink is still fresh on the page, but the raw honesty behind her words is heavy. She wrote that he was finally starting to feel like a member, like he truly belonged by her side. Shun wonders if just having a junior to walk home with makes her this happy, or if it's specifically him. He sees it clearly now, a year of lavender hair and lonely bridges, a girl with a stick and an imagination that had no one to share it with. He imagines her walking home alone, bridge after bridge, with only the wind for company. The thought that he might have changed that silence for her makes the air in the library feel thin. He watches her, the twilight deepening outside the window. Is it more fun for her now, with a partner who fusses over umbrellas and study sessions? Or did she prefer the quiet extinction of her solitary walks? The sun is dipping below the horizon, painting the library in oranges and deep purples. Shun watches her breathe, the tension of the journal entries fading into a soft, silly realization. Looks like an ostrich to me. The library is nearly empty, the long shadows of the stacks stretching across the floor. Shun finally nudges her awake, the shared silence of the evening feeling like a secret they've kept from the rest of the world. She blinks the sleep from her eyes, the twilight reflecting in them with a warmth that makes Shun's heart skip. She doesn't even feel bad about the lack of progress. I made a lot of progress, though, in my dream, that is. She stands up, the exam forgotten for the more important mission of the day. Well, time to go home. Even as they pack up, Naoki can't help but revel in her fictional apocalypse one last time. Yet another civilization has been wiped out, she chirps, perfectly content as the world, the real one anyway, continues to spin. The air is thick with the promise of summer break, and Naoki is celebrating her survival by brandishing a dead branch like a scepter. She claims they made it through exams safely, but Shun knows that's a bold-faced lie from someone who slept through their study sessions. He studies her, the skepticism practically radiating off his uniform. You have any plans for the summer vacation, senpai? Naoki drops a bombshell that defies all logic. She's the lead in her class's cultural festival play. It's not just any play, she calls it Little Red Riding Hood of the Dead, an action horror mashup where the hood carries a shotgun. Shun's brain stalls. He stares at this girl, the one who treats a 20-minute walk like an epic quest, and can't imagine her hitting a mark or remembering a line. But you can't act, right? The reality of being a high school student in Japan finally sets in. Summer vacation isn't for relaxing. It's for unpaid labor disguised as school spirit. Between her rehearsals and his class prep, the daily rituals of the go-home club are about to be swallowed whole by the festival. Shun watches her walk away, realizing that if they have to come to school for rehearsals, their shared quiet time is officially on the endangered species list. Next day, the classroom is a battlefield of glitter and tape. Class 1A has collectively decided to lean into the weird with a cyberpunk maid cafe, while Haruto and the rest of the boys cheer like they've just won the lottery. Shun is left standing in the wake of the decision. It's loud, it's normal, and for the first time in weeks, it's completely Naoki-free. It's decided then. The no-club students are basically the designated pack mules for the festival, and Shun is at the top of the list. Miyamoto and the others descend on him with the kind of cheerful aggression only school committee members possess. They need someone to go to the supermarket for cardboard, and since Shun technically doesn't have official activities, he's the perfect target. He agrees, but his mind is already drifting toward the exit. The hallway is humming with the sound of students being productive, a noise that feels strangely alien now. Shun walks with his classmates, listening to them talk about schedules and goals, but his eyes keep scanning the crowd for a flash of lavender hair. He catches a glimpse of the empty space where she usually waits. The realization hits like a physical weight. The club is just him today, and normal suddenly feels very, very quiet. They end up at Yoku Mart, a group of kids on a mission for the highest quality trash the store has to offer. While the others hunt for boxes, Shun is lost in thought, his classmates' banter bouncing off him. Even the store clerk notes their enthusiasm, handing over the cardboard like it's a sacred relay baton. It's all going perfectly smoothly, and that's exactly what's bothering him. 4 people, 1 goal, 0 obstacles. It's the most efficient 30 minutes of Shun's life, and he hates it. The silence between the conversations feels cavernous. He scans his classmates' smiling faces and finally understands the void Naoki filled. Without her, there's no one to turn a simple errand into a fight for survival against a fictional apocalypse. This is what an actual going-home club without any troublemakers looks like. Back at the school gates, something catches the light in the bushes, a long, perfectly weathered branch lying in the dirt. It's trash to anyone else, but through the lens of the Hyper-Go-Home Club, it's a masterpiece. Shun stops dead, the heavy box in his arms suddenly feeling lighter. He doesn't just see a stick, he sees a reason to stay. His classmates are already planning the after-party, congregating around their phones like a digital campfire. "I want some ice cream." One of them chirps and the group turns to Shun, expecting him to fall into line. It's the easy choice, the one that keeps him part of the pack. But then he looks out the window, and the decision is already made. Shun doesn't even hesitate, even as his friends stare at him like he's grown a second head. He gives them a half-wave, already mentally halfway out the door. No, today's probably not the best. He can feel their eyes on his back, the confusion thickening the air, but he's already focused on the silhouette waiting near the gates. The classroom erupts. "You got a girlfriend already?" they shout, the rumor mill grinding into high gear before he can even clear the threshold. Shun's face burns a bright, traitorous red, his hand tightening on his bag strap until his knuckles turn white. He tries to shut it down, to explain the impossible logic of his situation, but there's no way to make it sound normal. She's from the Hyper-Go-Home Club. As he runs down the stairs, the echoes of his own confession ring in his ears. He questions his own sanity, the logic of trading ice cream with friends for a walk with a girl who thinks she's a zombie hunter. He sees her waiting there, looking small against the twilight, and the doubt just evaporates. Do I want to head back with this weird girl so much? Naoki looks exhausted, her usual spark dimmed by hours of memorizing lines and shotgun aiming drills. She notices he stayed late too, and for a second, the eccentric barrier drops, revealing the simple girl underneath. She asks if he'd rather be with his friends, her voice lacking its usual theatrical flourish. "You sure you don't want to walk back with your friends?" Shun takes a breath, steering the conversation toward the bushes. He wants to show her he's not just a chronicler anymore, he's a participant. He points toward the branch he spotted earlier, the one that perfectly fits the aesthetic of a zombie-slaying Red Riding Hood. "Please follow me once in a while, look." He presents it like a knight offering a blade, the nice-looking sword he found just for her. Naoki's entire face lights up, the exhaustion of the day vanishing in an instant. She grips the stick, looking at it with a reverence most people reserve for holy relics. In this moment, Shun realizes he doesn't need the ice cream or the normal conversations, he just needed to see that look on her face. Looks like someone's starting to understand the romance of this too, huh? Summer vacation is screaming at the gates, and while every other student is dreaming of ice cream and laziness, the Hyper-Go-Home Club is scouting new territory. The bridge stretches over the Norikawa River, a shimmering divide between the grind of finals and the lawless heat of July. Back at school, the principal is delivering the standard "Don't Die" speech, specifically banning students from the very river we're currently staring at. Shun stands in the crowd, listening to the warnings about water-related accidents while knowing full well he's already committed to the danger. Naturally, as soon as the bell rings, Naoki turns the principal's warning into a mission statement. She's not just going because it's forbidden, she's going because she thinks it's the only polite thing to do. She pumps a fist and declares the plan. "We're going to the river today." The stakes are actually quite high. The student council conducted a search and destroy mission on her collection of elite sticks and rocks. Left weaponless, she fixes her gaze on the horizon with the intensity of a general who just lost her entire air force. "How will I battle from now on?" The riverbank is a goldmine of potential, and Naoki is already hunting for loot while planning to soak her feet. Shun is the voice of reason, or he's trying to be reminding her they're miles from school and technically in forbidden territory. But it's hard to argue when she's already rolling up her skirt and challenging him to join her in the water. She reaches out, her hands small and expectant against the backdrop of the rushing current. There's a sudden sharp silence between them as the distance closes. She doesn't look away, her voice soft but direct as she makes her request. "Hold me tight so I don't get swept away, all right?" The romance takes a hit when the riverbed starts feeling like a foot massage from a sadist. Naoki is struggling with her internal organs through her soles when a stray soccer ball interrupts the moment. It rolls to a stop at Shun's feet, a silent reminder of the field he had to leave behind. A pair of kids scramble up, eyes widening at the giant standing before them. They aren't just here for the ball, They're mesmerized by his height, treating Shun like a legendary titan. One of them looks up with pure envy and shouts, "I want to grow tall too." Shun watches them run off, the rhythmic sound of the ball against the grass echoing in the back of his mind. He used to be that kid, fast and focused, before the injury rewrote his future. Naoki is watching him, her gaze quiet and surprisingly heavy. She doesn't dance around it. She wants to know if high school is actually working for him yet, if the hyper go-home club has actually filled the void. Shun watches the shifting water, his answer honest and unpolished. "I still don't really understand." She leans in, the breeze catching her hair as she pushes the point. She wants him to look at the timeline, to see the difference between his solitary past and this messy present. She asks the million-yen question, which is more fun for you, last year or this year? She doesn't wait for him to find the words, she offers her own. She holds up a crystal-clear rock like it's a piece of the moon, her face glowing with a sincerity that cuts right through her usual theatrics. There was no one who could understand the romance of it. Shun looks at her, and for the first time, the weight in his chest actually lightens. The confusion is still there, but it's anchored by the girl holding the rock. A small, real smile finally breaks across his face. "I see. Glad to hear that." The moment lingers until Shun admits he still doesn't quite get the rock, earning himself a soul-piercing stare from his senpai. He's learning, but some things like the aesthetic value of river gravel require advanced studies. With the sun dipping low, it's time to call the mission a success. Shun checks his bag, mentioning that the next time they'll see each other is after vacation. The words hang in the air, suddenly heavy. Naoki stops mid-step, her back to him, staring at the bridge like she just realized the calendar is her newest enemy. She isn't letting him walk away that easily. She lunges forward, grabbing his backpack with a desperation that nearly topples him over. Her cheeks are flushed, her eyes wide and pleading as she blurts out the invitation she didn't know she had. "How about we go somewhere together during the summer vacation?" Shun is short-circuiting. He asks where, but she doesn't have a plan, just a need to not be alone. She insists anywhere will do, but Shun's literal brain is struggling. He points out that hanging out just to play doesn't exactly fit the going-home theme of the club. Naoki pivots with the speed of a seasoned lawyer. If they leave a place and return home, it counts as a club activity. It's an extracurricular mission of the highest order. Shun sighs, defeated by her chaotic logic, but he's already nodding. All right, I get it already."